not only about band, but otherwise we would gesture. I had that with one of my first podcasts where someone was commenting and saying, "You're gesturing and talking about a gesture. This is a podcast. We can't see it." Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Good point, mate. Good point, mate. Are you ready?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay, here we go. Sales in challenging situation. Many people say at the moment I'm in a situation where I don't know how to sell because everything changed. So who do we need? We need someone who inspires and enables exceptional performance, drives and delivers bottom line results. And that's exactly the tagline of the international speaker and best-selling business author. Hello and welcome, Simon Hazeldine.
Hi, Niels. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much for taking the time, and we get straight into the topic. We, of course, prepared, and people send us emails and said, look, I have this situation. I do sales on a people basis. I meet people, I just get along with them well, and they book me because they like me. And that still sort of works when people knew me or know me. But when I approach new clients, they have no idea who I am. On Zoom, on Skype, I just don't get it across. What shall I do when I suddenly can't meet people and let's say for at least for the next couple of months minimum? How can I keep on selling when I can't meet people physically anymore?
Yeah. So firstly, I think, talking to a number of my clients, we've been helping them to adapt their face-to-face selling approach over to a virtual, a remote environment. And I think this is definitely something people should focus on, not just during the current sort of lockdown kind of COVID situation, but going forwards, all of the evidence seems to be pointing towards more and more people are going to be working remotely, working from home. So, this I think is a skill set that business people and salespeople need to develop. It is perfectly possible to make very strong connections with people using remote technology. What you're missing.
How do I do it?
Yeah. So what you have to focus on and what you are missing is kind of the social cues. So when it's a face-to-face interaction, you have non-verbal, for example, communication, which contributes significantly to understanding. You can still, however, if you get people onto camera, that is going to help. But even if you can't, spend a bit of time. Do what you would normally do, which is that rapport building, but find some time. I think what often happens, people when they're working remotely on Zoom, they feel like they have to dive straight into business. You can still warm up the conversation, warm up the relationship. The other thing to do, I think you should do some social research. Go and look at what the person is, what they're doing on social media, what activity they are posting on, what are they commenting on. Have a look at their LinkedIn profile, get an insight into their personality. I mean, I was working with a group of salespeople today, and one of them we were talking about doing this sort of online research to help to build the relationship in advance before you go on. One guy said he found out that his prospective customer he wanted to speak to went to the same university that he did. And there's an obvious point of connection that you can find. But even if you don't have a common connection, you can ask questions and show interest in what it is. I noticed that you were posting when I was looking on LinkedIn. I noticed you seemed interested in this. How are you finding that? How are you finding that situation? So we have to just engage with people in this virtual environment. I mean, you probably have to work harder to create that engagement by doing your research in advance, getting an insight into what the person is interested in, what they're commenting on online, asking questions about that. Questions are engaging. So asking questions, get out of your own head, get inside the other person's head, start, seeing the world through their eyes, asking them, how are things going for you at the moment? I think actually this presents a better opportunity than ever before to establish quite different intimate levels of connection with customers, because often they're working from home. I've seen more of my clients' children, than I ever have.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with people's children when they've come in there. And you have at the moment, you have an amazing opportunity to have a shared experience because you're both working in the way that you're working. What's going on for you at the moment? How are you feeling? How's it feeling inside your organization? What kind of changes have happened as a result? How are you feeling about those changes? So I think get interested and curious about the other person and show a genuine interest in them. And then you can achieve that irrespective of the medium of communication that you are working through,
Excellent.
And if possible, warm up the relationship before you speak to the person by, for example, liking, commenting on their posts on LinkedIn.
Getting in the conversation early. And mentioning LinkedIn is a perfect transition to the next question, because we received quite a number of questions where people said what they realize at the moment is, obviously, because many, well, I don't want to call them experts, but there are obviously quite a number of people out there who tell them you should cold contact people on LinkedIn, because it is a numbers game. And when you have a certain number of people contacted, you will get a certain number of results. Old rule, more contacts, more contracts. And I see it as well. When I see how often I normally receive cold contacts on LinkedIn, normally we're a couple per week. Now it's a couple per day. Yeah. What do you think about this kind of, I just text someone on LinkedIn and see what's coming out of that?
I really just don't. I think there is an old adage in sales, it's a numbers game. Yeah, yes, but what I see a lot of is people think they're doing social selling, and they're not doing social selling. They're doing old-fashioned bad selling. They're just doing it on LinkedIn. So,
what is social selling for you then?
Social selling, I think, is about establishing relationships with people, demonstrating your authority, about making connections with people, to have conversations, not to sell. So it's, to some degree, it's the art of selling without selling. You make a connection with someone, you show that you're useful to them, you share information that they might find useful, and you engage in careful conversations, not going straight into a sales pitch. I mean, I get them quite a lot, I dear Simon, I like to connect, so on and so forth. And then I go, would you like to buy this? Yeah, that's not social selling. That's bad selling, just transferred from the face-to-face world to the online world. Hang on, you don't even know anything about me yet. We haven't had a conversation. We haven't established even if I'm interested. So, I think look at the LinkedIn Social Selling Index. If you don't know what yours is, look LinkedIn Social Selling Index. It'll give you a score out of 100, and it'll be across the 4 areas. Now, obviously, slight degree of skepticism. It's obviously a marketing vehicle for LinkedIn, and I encourage you to use, things like Sales Navigator. But by the way, why would you not want to use Sales Navigator? I think it's an excellent tool. But you're trying to connect with people, not interrupt people. That's old-fashioned interruption selling. It's like cold calling someone at home. Everybody hates that. Nobody likes that. And just firing, if you fire 100 connections out, maybe that's going to work. But I have a 2-stage approach. So firstly, I prospect in my second order network. So when I connect, I say, hey, Niels, I'm interested in building my network of, sales leaders. I notice we've already got some mutual connections. It would be great to connect. And that gets me probably a 60-70% connection rate. And then I don't do anything with that connection for a few days. I leave it to just lie there for a while, and then I'll go back and open up a conversation. Is it worth us having a chat about X, Y, Z? A number of we often work with clients, helping them to solve this sort of a challenge. Is that something you're experiencing as well? I was trying to engage a conversation. Ryan Dias, the American internet marketer, describes, says conversations are the new lead.
Yeah.
But you've got to have you genuinely want to understand that person, genuinely want to find out what their problems and challenges are. And then if you can help them, maybe then you progress to the next stage of the conversation. You take that communication offline to a phone call or to a Zoom meeting or something like that. So, I would say, you might want to keep up a reasonable connection rate every day to expand your network, but just firing out them en masse, Niels, is just old-fashioned interruption selling done over social media. That's not social selling.
Yeah, and I think I just received one a couple of minutes before we had our I received one just a couple of minutes before we went on our call. Of course, I'm not going to tell the name, but it was, hello, Niels, good morning. So first, it's noon here, but okay. So hello, Niels, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Do you have any need of external software development team or resources? I don't do anything in that area. So I was polite because it was a polite question, and I'm German. We are not really very often polite, let's face it. So I said, thanks. I do not have any software development needs. Kind regard, Niels Brabandt. And then he answered, okay, not an issue. Let me know in future if there's any need of resources and support. And I will never book that person. I just wonder why people still do this. So when people are now sitting there and say, we are in a different situation with sales right now, for just to wrap this whole interview up, what are Simon Hazeldine's top 3 tips what people in sales should do right now?
To do right now, firstly, keep in contact and connection with your existing customers. And because existing customers or prior customers are a great source of business, and ask them what's changed at the moment, what's happened, what opportunities has the current situation created? Because you've got to remember, some industries are doing quite well at the moment. Others, what problems are you encountering? And that is the second thing, is problems. Look for problems that you can solve. Get a piece of paper, or do it in Word or whatever. Down the left-hand side, brainstorm all the problems and all the challenges that customers can possibly, your customers, target customers have. And down the right-hand side, how can you help to solve those problems and to help them? And then I think, go on, make sure that every day, recent research shows that 70% of the information that buyers use to make a buying decision is self-discovered. So they go and search for it online. So make sure you're sharing useful, interesting content online, for example, on LinkedIn, that's helpful to people. Be helpful to people, show value, and then when they're doing their research, they're very likely to come across you. Or, as I get a lot of business from existing customers or people I've worked with, and then they get in touch and they say, I saw your post on LinkedIn, could we have a conversation? So it reminds you, we've got to remind them you're there. And a good friend of mine has an expression. He says, are you in your customer's useful box? And it's a metaphor that in every office drawer is a little cardboard box with useful people in it. It's just a metaphor. So what do? I've got a problem, or I've got an issue or an opportunity. Who do I know who could help me? Are you in the awareness of that customer, in that little box in the drawer? Open the drawer. There's Niels Brabandt. He can help me. And then they contact you and ask for your input and advice. Remind them you're there, but remind them you're there by sharing useful, valuable information, and be a bit provocative sometimes. If you think you've got a solution that's better, be a bit disruptive, share that kind of information online.
Excellent. That is perfect advice for the situation right now. Of course, I'm going to put Simon's contact data into the show notes of this podcast. So when you think you just want to talk to him in person, or you have additional aspects which you like to talk about, just drop him a line. His email address is in the show notes of this podcast. So at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing for me left to say. Simon, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Niels. My pleasure. Good luck and good selling to everybody listening in.